Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthy at Work. My name is Catherine Wilcox, a workplace health specialist with a big passion for helping people thrive at work. From the home office to the corporate office, from the assembly line to the front line, I've got you covered here for your healthiest life at work. Now let's dive into today's show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Healthy at Work. I'm your host, Catherine, and this week on Healthy at Work, we're talking about awe and wonder in the workplace. And to have this conversation, I'm so pleased to welcome my very special guest, Paula Toledo. Paula, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to introduce you to our listeners and to have this conversation with you. So for folks that aren't familiar with Paula's work, Paula is an award-winning social prescribing architect and well-being consultant who advises on psychological health and safety in the workplace. She's also a TEDx speaker, an artist, and serves as the lead well-being consultant of Vancouver Art Gallery's Art of Wellbeing Lab, featuring its award-winning nature and art prescription program with BC Parks Foundation's PARX. Paula works across sectors as the founder of Ode to Wonder Consulting, where she builds cultures of well-being and belonging. She has a Master of Applied Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, where she studied under one of the founders of positive psychology, Martin Siegelman. As a Canadian mental health advisor for psychological health and safety in the workplace and a national judge of the Canadian Workplace Wellbeing Awards, Paula strategizes with leaders to transform workplaces into cultures of connection that deepen meaningful work and fuel innovation. She currently serves on a national community advisory group for a research project, bridging the gap between health and parks, building a community-led nature prescribing agenda in Canada, led by research teams at the University of Toronto in collaboration with Park People and the Canadian Institute for Social Prescribing. Paula, welcome to the show. So happy to have you.
Thanks so much, Catherine. Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And so happy to discuss awe and wonder with you today. And so I thought as a place to start, for folks that are listening that might be wondering, well, awe and wonder, I think a lot of us have a sense of what these feelings or experiences could be, but can you share a bit more and flesh out a bit more what awe and wonder are?
Yeah, absolutely. There's various definitions depending on the researcher, but the researcher that I refer to a lot is Dr. Keltner out at the University of Berkeley. And he talks about awe as being an emotion we experience when we encounter something really vast and beyond our comprehension. And so it really transcends our current understanding of the world. And wonder is really what emerges from awe. So it's kind of like an open state of curiosity and an openness, and we tend to question things a lot more. There's like a gap in our knowledge, so we try to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so lots of different ways of understanding this, but kind of curiosity and something that brings us outside of ourselves. And can you tell us a bit around your relationship to awe and wonder, and how you became curious and interested in these ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really started from, I think, a very young age. I think I've always been, when I was younger, a child, I was always very curious about the world and looked at things with really wide eyes. And but more recently, it really became sort of a core tenet of the way that I lived my life during a really difficult and challenging period in my life. So about 16 years ago, I tragically lost my husband when my sons were very, very young. So I was postpartum with a newborn at home. He was 2 weeks old, and I had a 23-month-old at home as well that I was taking care of. And I just really remember this significant moment. I think it was probably an epiphany that I had during that time when I was nursing my son in the middle of the night, and I had my toddler next to me sleeping. And I remember just thinking to myself, how could our lives be so beautiful, so rich, so loving? We had great community, loving relationships with our family and our friends. And for things to be going so well, and then it was like life had pulled out the rug from under us and just like everything, our whole lives, all of the furniture was like up in the air and just like debris and chaos. It had landed. And I thought, how could life be so beautiful in one instance and then in the next instance be the complete opposite? And I had this epiphany where I thought the opposite must also be true. I must be able to wake up one morning, turn around the corner and just like collide with good fortune, like just collide with bounty. And I thought that must also be true. And that was my moment, I think, in my grief stricken state of complete awe. So again, that awe is that emotion that we experience when we experience something so vast and so incomprehensible that, yeah, it's just like it doesn't make sense to the way that we normally see the world. And so it led to wonder. It led to that idea of, oh, I wonder if tomorrow I just turn around the corner and all of a sudden I'm just like this windfall out of nowhere. Right. And so it became sort of like the way that I approached every single morning, even though it was really difficult. My mom was actually in her last days. She was struggling, fighting cancer at the time. And so there was just like a lot that was going on. But it was really a really profound moment for me to experience that awe and experience that wonder. And it really gave me a sense of hope that tomorrow could be different.
Wow, thank you for the powerful share, Paula, from your lived experience with loss and suffering and grief. And it sounds like there was this powerful moment where, yeah, in that, I think you were describing like just the opposite must be true. Like,
Yeah.
there's this intense suffering or intense loss I'm experiencing, and wow, like there's a gateway to hope that opened to you or possibility for something also. Wow, so it sounds again like there's a really strong connection for you from your own experience into this work of um, exploring how awe and wonder can be supportive to ourselves and others. And so it sounds like you've had benefit in your own life from these experiences. um, are there other benefits, like thinking about the workplace? I know, many of our listeners are really curious about workplace health and how to connect with experiences and practices and ideas that support them. So I'm curious what kind of benefit awe and wonder might have in a workplace context.
Yeah, from a well-being standpoint, I mean, there's studies. Well, first of all, I should say that Um, the research demonstrates that when we experience on wonder, that because it really transcends the way that we normally see the world, that
Mhm.
we naturally it leads to this sense of curiosity and exploratory nature of being more open to things. So, from a workplace perspective, that can be really, really helpful in terms of innovation. Because when we experience awe, we naturally try to bridge that gap in knowledge. So it's a really great anchor for meaning making, but also learning and growth potential. And so
Mhm.
if there is a gap that we're trying to bridge, especially when it comes to creativity and innovation in the workplace, it can be really helpful to use that mechanism of like inviting more awe into the workplace to try to trigger that sense of meaning that we might get out of a certain work project or work that we're doing or our place in the organization, and then to try to encourage or nurture that sense of curiosity that can invite you know ideas that might come from other places that may not be kind of the status quo in the workplace, and that's really what leads to innovation.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's this sense of, you mentioned meaning making and finding, that curiosity to innovate, to think about things differently. I think about my own experience in the workplace as well, and how, sometimes we have our heads down and we're focused on the routines, and we approach problems in the same way. And, I love what you shared around, like, there's this gap that can be created, where something else can come in, and there's, other possibilities. And so, yeah, so innovation, certainly, it sounds like, from your vantage point, and
Yeah,
important.
and I should also add that there were studies from Yang Meng, who's out of the Shanghai International Studies University, and his colleague Xiao Wang, who were really studying on the workplace. And what they learned was, like, they studied three different groups. One where they just asked them to have a very just talk about something that was happening in the workplace. Another instance where they spoke about something pleasant that was happening at work, and then another one that was really specific to on the workplace. And what
Yeah.
they learned was that the group who experienced on the workplace tended to be more pro-social. So they
Hmm.
asked them after the study was over, they paid all of them. And then they asked the group, like, could we need some help with this other kind of non-related research activity? And the people who experienced on the workplace had more intention to help, and they also helped the researchers. So they saw that there was more, that it led to pro-social behaviors. So when we think about from a team perspective and teaming, Amy Edmondson talks about teaming and how important it is in today's workplace,
Hmm.
being able to work and collaborate together in real time and have that psychological safety. That's super important. And
Hmm.
so when we think about, all of the different things that we can do as leaders to a look at ways to be more creative and innovative, b to have our team more engaged, to be working together closely, to be able to team well and have psychological safety, instead of like a one-off kind of team building day or event, to really have these opportunities to think very mindfully about how we could inject onto the workplace.
Hmm. And what are some ways we might do that? If you're a leader listening, or a colleague, and you want to inject more awe, like more aliveness, more innovation, like, what are some
Mm.
practical ways that you see teams doing that?
I think it's always great to um, inject a sense of pride in the workplace in terms of like what the team has accomplished, what the organization has accomplished. Like, there's a lot of awe in there. And so one of the studies that I found really interesting was a study done by Dr. Keltner and his colleagues, and his colleague. They studied 2,600 individuals all over the world, different countries, and they asked them about their experiences of awe. So where they experienced this emotion that was so vast and incomprehensible, it really didn't translate into their current understanding of the world. And then they took those experiences and they created a taxonomy, and they called it the eight wonders in life. And so some of the things that we naturally associate with awe, like, we think about like the Grand Canyon, and we think about nature, we think about these beautiful works of or pieces of music. We think about those things that we naturally, refer to when we think of the word awe and wonder. But one of the most interesting and curious wonders that was depicted, what they said that was their number one wonder, was what they called moral beauty. And moral beauty is essentially when we witness someone else acting with such pure intention, with courage and kindness and overcoming. And that happens all the time
Yeah.
around us every single day, whether it's in the workplace or outside of the workplace. And
Hmm.
how often do we recognize that in the workplace, but we don't name it? We
Hmm.
don't name, that colleague that, just came back from, maybe a leave, that is now doing incredible things for the team and contributing in a way that is so meaningful to the organization, despite them having been maybe really challenged in their personal life. We don't recognize some of the strengths of our fellow colleagues that, um, the colleague that just goes out of their way to always make sure that everybody's cared for, that that they're the ones that organize, go above and beyond to volunteer and put their hand up to organize these events or team building events or social events or, things that really bring the team together, even though it's not part of their job description. They're the ones, the glue that makes everybody feel really happy to work within their team organization. And so really like acknowledging these individuals and instances where teams have risen to the occasion, where they've maybe overcome something super challenging, but accomplished like a great feat. These moments and really naming them and really having the vocabulary and really training managers and leaders to understand that vocabulary and how to use it and implement it, not just, as a feedback mechanism,
Uh-huh.
but all the way throughout. So really like even from the start of like recruitment, like putting up a posting, really identifying like what does it mean to have this moral beauty and these character traits or character strengths, and then translating that all the way through every single process within the organization.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, the tears are coming to my eyes as you're describing that. I tend to be, yeah, someone who's like feelings like show up through their eyes and tears. But I was really moved by what you were articulating. I hadn't heard that term before, moral beauty, but I recognize it like as you were
Mm.
describing that, like how because I was thinking about what you were talking about earlier, Paula, around like uh, pro-social behaviors or teams, or like how we can be in awe of each other, or just how beneficial that can be. And um, I was just thinking about some of my experiences in the workplace. Yeah, just witnessing these acts of, for me, it's like an act of courage often, that I can see, like somebody speaking up about something, or growing, or taking something on that I know is scary or it requires some vulnerability. And when like people do that, like my feelings come out or like right through my eyes. Like I'm so moved
Oh,
by that. Like just that the
yeah.
way that like humans are yeah so capable of amazing things, including at work.
Yes.
And I love that. So moral beauty,
Yeah.
something to think more about how we can
Yeah.
bring
I actually didn't really know what that was either, but when I read that study and it really landed because I understood. I'm the exact same way, Catherine. I really tear up. I get moved to tears really, really easily. And one of the things that I always thought was curious about the Olympics was that when I would watch it, and it always happened for some reason in figure skating at the end of
yeah
the figure skating, when they're like, it's usually like they do their routine and they're standing there and they're just like, you could see, like, even if they had a few falls, they're just so proud that they made it through. And then the applause. And I bawl, I'm like
yeah
crying. And I'm like, why am I crying? But yeah, it's very, it really is, when I think about organizations and investments to, try to really encourage engagement, try to encourage psychological safety, it's for me like um, it is the least expensive intervention that we could implement in the workplace,
hmm yeah yeah it
and
doesn't cost
the most
anything.
effective. I mean, most effective.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's like, yeah, these are interventions, are ways of being that don't cost, organizations anything. They require, attention and focus. And I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was laughing there because I'm an Olympic crier as well. Yeah, totally. It's like the
We should
triumph.
we should get medals for that.
Totally. That's great. And well, it makes me think as well, all around like this time of human history that we find ourselves in. And there can be so much despair, so much anxiety, discouragement, disengagement, overwhelm. I know these are feelings that are also very palpable for people. And so I've been thinking a lot about things like hope. You use that word. When we talk about awe and wonder, I'm wondering about your perspective on this, like why these are actually so critical. Because I am sure there's some people listening that are like, am I worthy of, awe and wonder right now? Like there's so many terrible things going on all around us, or, is it selfish to focus on these emotions, given that there's so much suffering and,
Mhm.
you know, and I actually think they have an essential role. So I'm really curious to hear like your perspective on this. Like why are awe and wonder so important right now, especially?
Yeah, thanks for raising that point and bringing up this question. It is really important that we think about on wonder and these positive emotions as not nice to haves. Like it is really, and the research supports that. There's a researcher by the name of Barbara Fredrickson that talks about this idea of this upward spiral that we can have when we experience positive emotions. And she researched negative emotions and positive emotions. And so negative emotions like fear, for instance, were really important for us as a human species in order to evolve. So if we think about the days of when our ancestors were being chased by a predator, it was really important to feel fear, to ignite that, fight and flight and be able to escape the predator. And that's what helped our species to evolve, to survive and evolve. But with the role of positive emotions, what she learned was that, and what she studied was that positive emotions like awe and joy and interest and there's several other positive emotions were really important to have because while the negative emotions were really important for that specific point in time, sort of like the short tail of being able to like survive, survive and evolve as a species, the positive emotions have more of a long tail effect and impact, meaning that in the moment, it might not keep, like if we experience joy in the moment where we're being chased by a predator, we would, get eaten and that wouldn't be serving humanity. But if we experience positive emotion, what happens is over time, it has a positive effect because it can really open us up and broaden us to new
Mhm.
ways of thinking. And, to the point about what we were talking about earlier about how all can lead to wonder that opens us up to new ways of seeing and to questioning and to being more curious. That over the long tail of our species has been really, really vital and important for us. If we think
Mhm.
about all the innovations that have happened. And so positive emotions definitely have a purpose and a role
Mhm.
in terms of who we are as a human species and our evolution.
Mhm.
And now in this critical juncture where there is a lot happening in the world, we have a lot of crises that are converging all at the same time, and we have this emerging development with AI that's really changing the way we live and work. If we think about it through that lens, our ability to stay open and innovate and be creative and to get us out of these really tricky situations that we're experiencing
Mm.
is really important. So it
Mhm.
isn't positive emotions and emotions like awe are not. It's not a nice to have. It's a necessity now more than ever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Not a luxury, as you've
Yeah.
shared, something that serves. I love that, the long tail effect of our species. Paula, I could keep talking to you about this all day because I think this is such an important topic. I would love, for people listening to learn a bit more about like the work that you do with organizations, and if you're able to speak a little bit about, how you bring this, to different workplaces, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I feel really fortunate to be able to do this work. And I work, as you mentioned earlier, across sectors. So one of the key roles that I have is with the Vancouver Art Gallery, where I am their lead wellbeing consultant for their Art of Wellbeing Lab. And that's where I'm responsible for building out this ecosystem of doctors and researchers, scientists, Indigenous elders, and other healthcare practitioners to really explore how art can be used as a form of healing and collective well-being. And so we've partnered with the BC Parks Foundation PRX program, where now doctors can refer patients, doctors and other registered healthcare practitioners can refer patients who are experiencing loneliness, social isolation, or other social determinants of health to nature park visits. And now they can have access to a complimentary access for themselves and a guest to an indoor forest bathing and nature experience via Emily Carr's nature-inspired artwork. So it's a program that we've been working on. We launched over a year ago, and we also have seniors and art and well-being programs, and we're really expanding the lab. So that's an area that I feel really passionate about, because I have lived experience of having received a music prescription and a movement prescription back in the day, when after I had lost my husband, I went to see a doctor and I was referred to a social worker who then met with me and interviewed me and asked me what really mattered to me. And when she learned I was a musician as well, she really encouraged me to write music and do that with my community. And it really, really helped me get back on my feet. So I was so curious about it. I went back to grad school, did my master's in applied positive psychology to understand art prescriptions, social prescribing, and ways to build out a well-being pathway. So that work is really evolving at the gallery, and I feel really proud of the work that we've done to date. And then I also work uh, within workplaces and work with leaders where I consult with them on psychological safety in the workplace, and I give workshops. One of the main workshops I give is called an Ode to Wonder gathering, where I bring the groups together and I break them up in small groups, and everybody brings a story of wonder. So a person, place, or thing. Sometimes it could be a piece of music that they share that inspires awe and wonder, and that's beautiful and really meaningful to them. And in small groups, I get them to share their stories of wonder, and then I really teach them how to listen attentively and how to actively, constructively respond to the person that's sharing their wonder, and to spot the character strengths in the person that's sharing their story of wonder. So the character strengths that are elicited through the stories that they share. And so it's really deeply, it really fosters really deep interactions among fellow colleagues and peers, and allows them to see one another through that lens of moral beauty, and also through the strengths that they bring to the workplace, as opposed to there seems to be a tendency that we really focus on our team members as being really utilitarian to like achieve a certain goal, and which is important. It's very important. But we often forget that there are human beings behind that person. There's a human being that has all these wonderful character traits and strengths that it's often through the lens of which they see the world, and through these strengths that they contribute in a really unique and meaningful way. And so being able to identify that is powerful. And so it's really wonderful. I often bring Kleenex to these gatherings, because there is, not out of sadness, but people are really moved to hear other people's stories. And so it's one of my favorite things to do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And where can people learn more? Like, where could they be directed to, access more information about these?
Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn, Paula Toledo, Ode to Wonder, and also on my website, odetowonder.com.
Amazing. We'll make sure that those are included in the show notes today. Paula, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm going to go away and cry. But probably and think about, this great conversation, and just that idea of moral beauty, and on how to bring more of that to the places that I work with and the people I work with. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody who was listening and watching today as well. If you've, were moved or touched by our conversation, I really invite you to share this episode in your workplace, with a colleague, with a friend, with someone that needs it. And look forward to seeing you back here next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening today. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and is not medical advice or mental health treatment. If you're struggling at work, please reach out to the supports within your workplace or community. This podcast was gratefully recorded on the unceded and ancestral homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations.